Hello and welcome to this first tutorial in how to get a good pass mark, a good grade in your NEA task. This is based around an OCR sample material, but it will be useful, it will help you whatever exam board you're doing. The basic skills remain the same. So you'll be given a scenario to solve and to write up some documentation and create a coded piece of work. Now this is a scenario from OCR, and basically what it's saying is we've got some new students coming to a school and they're given a unique ID number, tutor group and a unique school email address. It tells us our tutor group has 25 male and female students, and Mr. Lehman, he wants a simple computer system to manage his group. It says it needs to be a user-friendly interface, so the program needs to be easy to use. He has to log into the system and carry out certain tasks. Details he needs are, well, you can see them. Unique ID number, surname, forename, date of birth, home address, phone number, gender, tutor group and unique school email address. Then we come on to the task that we have to do. So we have to analyse, design, test, develop and evaluate a program that allows him to log in with a username and password, access a menu system, enter and store the student's details, log out, retrieve and display details of any student when he enters the ID number, create 3 different reports that he might need and describe how he would use each one, and produce those reports when selected from a menu. So when you look at this, the first thing you've got to do is analyse what data types you're going to need to store this information. Then once we've got that, we can move on to start thinking about what programming constructs we'll need, where we're going to need if, else statements, where we're going to need to print things to the screen, where are we going to have to save things, text files, so on and so forth. But the very first step is to work out what data types we're going to use. Now, that will start us on the road towards getting some really good marks. If we understand the data types, what we're using and why, we can start to pick up marks not only for the program but for the design section and also the evaluation, and we're going to get some good marks here. So these are the details that need storing, so we can start to look at these and think, what are we going to use? So we need a unique ID number. Now we've got a couple of different data types we could use for this. Now if we have a look at this PowerPoint, we could, for example, use an integer because we can store whole numbers. It won't store a number with a leading 0, so you couldn't have a unique ID number of 0356 because it would get stored as 356. The leading 0 gets taken away. You can use it for calculations, but for an ID number, don't really need it for calculations. So an integer is possible. Because it can be used for addition, this could be a handy data type to use because we could start the first ID number at 1 and then simply add 1 every time a new student is added, which fulfills the criteria, becomes unique. So that's one possibility. Float, double or real, these are all data types that store numbers with a decimal part, so 6.2. You can also use it for calculations. Is it useful for an ID number? Probably not. Next big data type is a string. So we use this for storing character strings, so it's any text, numbers, special symbols like a hashtag, really useful for storing names, postcodes, telephone numbers, addresses, etc. For a unique ID number, yeah, we could use a string because, for example, we could use, we could have numbers stored here, so it's a potential one. So it says unique ID number, we could use a string, but for sake of ease, possibly an integer might be easier. Char is another type of data type. You can only store one single character, so not going to be ideal. Bool or Boolean only stores true or false. So we can now see string, yeah, possibly, or integer looks like the best one because we can store a number, we can add to it each time. It would be very simple to get a unique data type. So that's our first analysis, if you like, and our first data type chosen. Unique ID number, we'll choose an integer. So if this was me, I would literally write out each time the data type I was choosing, so that I've got it as a little plan. So we're going to have an integer for that one. Surname. So a surname contains text. It's got different letters. So again, looking at our data types, an integer, it's only numbers, not really suitable. Float, double, real, decimal part numbers, no, not really suitable. String, yeah, so we can store lots of text in there. It's good for names, we can see that. Could be very useful. Char, single characters, nope. Boolean, true or false, nope. So, process of elimination, it's a string. So, perfect, next one done. Forename, well, again, just like a surname, it's going to be text, so string is ideal. Date of birth. Now, you could think, oh, date of birth, it's a number, so I'm going to go with an integer. That would be a mistake, because a date of birth could be 06 for June, and it wouldn't store the 0. Also, sometimes dates are written with forward slashes, so again, you couldn't store that in integer. So, although it's a number, string would be ideal for this particular data type. So we're going to type that in there. String. Home address, it's text. So again, straightforward. We're going to use a string for that. Home phone number. Now again, a lot of students would think, oh, it's a number, therefore an integer. But again, if we go back to the point, you cannot store a leading 0. So most phone numbers do have a leading 0. So an integer's out straight away. You don't have any decimal part, and again you'll have the same problem with a float, so we come back to a string. String is absolutely ideal for a phone number. You're never going to do any maths on a phone number, so again, string. Gender, you could use a string here again because it's a character, or you could use a char. Depends on what programming language you're using. For Python there isn't a char, so it's just a string with one character, so I'm going to put down here string. Or if you're using a different programming language, it could be a char. Tutor group, again, it's just a series of letters, it's text, so string is ideal. And unique school email address, well, an email address is a combination of text and special symbols, so string again. And there you have it. If you were to write this up now, giving the justifications we've talked through, for your design section, you're already well on the way to getting quite a few good marks for your work. So that's how you start your NEA. You read through the brief carefully, and the first thing you do, identify your data types, write them up so you can justify what you're using and why. And again, the justification, it's literally like this. I'm going to use an integer for this particular variable because it's going to be whole numbers. I might be using it for calculations, so it's ideal. I don't need to deal with leading zeros, so an integer is ideal. If you were storing a data type that needed a decimal point, so for example someone's height, again you would justify it by saying I'm going to use a float for the person's height because it can have a fractional part and a float is ideal. String, again, you're just going to justify your strings because you can store text, numbers and special symbols, therefore it's ideal. Char, again, for a single character, so M or F of male or female, perfect case in point. Bool or Boolean, we haven't seen that yet, but again, it can be useful for starting and stopping loops, and we'll look at that one again later. So there you have it. That's how you begin to get to grips with your task. Have a read through, get your data types sorted, write it up as part of your design section, and you're well on the way. Thanks for listening. See you next time.